Bro, it was the greatest 2 to 3 hours of my life. All right, let's start this bad boy in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we are back with a fresh, new, tasty, delicious episode of Speak Freely. I am, of course, one of your co-hosts, David B., along with my good friend, Mr. Kuno Stars. My dude, how are you?
I'm good. I would say you are the host.
The host? No.
With the most.
This is our baby. We're both the hosts, so co-hosts. It's 50-50, like a marriage. Once we separate, I take half, you take the other half, you know?
Yeah. How do we switch these? I don't like this setup. I need to be on the other side.
All right, I can do that real quick. Blah, blah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I get it. You like me on the left. Yeah,
the driver's side.
Yeah. Welcome to a new episode of Speak Freely, everybody. First of all, we just want to say thank you to everyone who participated in Filmtober Madness, all the views we got, the people who played along, the live episode we had, our wonderful guests, Janine the Machine, Rachel Silverstrini, Abby Friel. It was a lot of fun. We for sure are going to sprinkle more Filmtober-like episodes here and there, but I thought I had a great time, man. I thought it was a huge success.
I loved it. It was fun. I think you forgot to mention Nika as one of our.
Oh yeah, our third guest on our last episode, my good friend Nika from our years in service of our undergrad. It was a lot of fun, man. It was a lot of fun debating movies, just getting to talk movies, and just having fun, man.
Yeah,
there's so many highlights in it, and I highly recommend if you're checking us out for the first time, dear viewer, please go back and check out those episodes. They were a lot of fun. But we are now in the month of November. We got fresh new takes on fresh new topics, and today we're going to be talking about the state of music, specifically pop music. Essentially, all we did to get prepared for this was just go on Spotify and be like, what's the top 50 in the US? Here we go. And oh boy, do we have thoughts. First of all, before we dive in, because we're just going to dive in, dude. We're just going to go in raw, baby. There's no foreplay here. It's just, we get in there. There you go. This also is a rated R podcast. I don't know if you can tell. First of all, I am of the firm belief that art is subjective. Like, for the most part, most art is subjective, like 99% of it, right? I think all art aims to elicit some kind of emotional response from its viewer, regardless of what it is, right? Even if that response is like pure apathy, it elicits some kind of response from its viewer. That's what I think is the main point of art. Whether you think it's good or it's bad totally depends on you, the individual, what you've lived through, your tastes, how you develop, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm saying that on top because I'm pretty sure me and Brian are probably going to take massive dumps on genres and songs that people probably vehemently love. And I apologize right off the bat. At the same time, it's just our opinion, man. Even though our opinion is above everyone else's because we're posting on the internet, therefore making it the most important opinion of all time. It's just our opinion. You're fine. If you disagree, you're more than welcome to hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Speak Freely Pod and leave comments. But I'm gonna let Brian start us off because, like, yeah, our experience, I think, is the same in some aspects and also differs in some aspects, but. Initial thoughts going through, and we just listened to top US 50, right, on Spotify. We both did that, right?
Yes, definitely.
Right. Initial thoughts, Brian, and then I'll give initial thoughts.
Before we even get into it,
yes,
I want to say you and I are of a certain age, where
old. Yes,
where a lot of these songs aren't necessarily made for us in in our demographic, right? They're trying to hit.
That's fair to say, yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to hit a certain age group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we are necessarily a part of it. That said, I don't know if I ever thought I would get to this point where I almost feel like my parents.
Oh no, we're our parents. Stop it.
Yeah. Which
This is
you know,
basura. Es basura
Yeah.
que estás escuchando. Which translates to this is trash that you're
this
listening
trash,
to.
yes. Yeah. So you think your parents are Hispanic?
Yep.
My parents are from a Hispanic culture.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of music did you grow up hearing in the house?
Oh boy, that's a great question. This is why you're the co-host, man. I didn't even think of that, bro. Didn't even think of it, bro.
Yeah, because I think culture plays a huge part of it too, right?
So there's a lot of different types of music, surprisingly, in my household growing up. When I was like a toddler, right? Like baby barely can develop long-term memory. You know what I'm saying? Like my uncles and my aunts from my mom's side lived with us for a short while. So obviously, you know, my mom's side of the family being from Mexico, there was a lot of like mariachi music, a lot of like ranchero banda music, los bukis. If you guys remember, any Mexicans out there remember los bukis, like stuff like that. We had Selena.
Sorry, it's actually pronounced Selena. Thank you.
Oh, Selena, perdón. Cállate. But you know what I mean? Like a lot of like music that was a lot of like what's this one dude's name? Famous singer, Gabriel. Oh God, I'm blanking on his name. He was like a very famous like Spanish singer, like, and he made like a bunch of like just crazy ballads and stuff. There was a lot of that. Juan Gabriel. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. See, it didn't register with me as a kid, obviously, and like it didn't really impact me. I think the music that impacted me when I was a kid growing up wasn't like that side, was like what my dad was listening to. Because surprisingly, my dad, like he grew up in El Salvador, so a lot of the music there was like cumbia, right? Like cumbia from Colombia, cumbia made in El Salvador and stuff like that. So a lot of cumbia for sure. But he also was like very worldly in that he also really liked like the Beatles, the Beach Boys, the Monkees. So like when we were in the car together, he would always have very famous radio station in LA, K Earth 101, which was golden oldies, right? So it's just like, so that's what I grew up listening to, man. Creedence and like Leonard Skinner and stuff like that. So for some reason as a kid, that always kind of like resonated with me more. And then on my mom's side, my mom is very, very Catholic. So my uncles would listen to all the worldly Spanish music, but my mom only listened to Christian/Catholic music in the car. And a lot of that was like Marcos Witt, mostly Marcos Witt, and other Christian bands I just can't remember. A lot of worship CDs, like, now this is what we call worship #2 and stuff like that. But yeah, that was the stuff growing up. And then, you know, then my sisters were born, and it eventually became a lot of Disney soundtrack. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of like the Disney used to release like mixed CDs of their own like popular songs from their movies and stuff
like
that.
The volumes that you can get from McDonald's. I had those.
Yeah. You remember, dude?
Yeah,
it was a lot of that stuff, and eventually we all three of us individually, because it's me and my two younger sisters, that started developing our own tastes. So when you're a kid, you just kind of listen to what the radio tells you to listen to at the time, right? So it's like a lot of Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees, Britney Spears, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then as you know, once eventually you start developing and you try to get your own tastes, like eventually someone somewhere introduced me to Linkin Park, and that blew my mind. I was like, 14, maybe 13, 14, somewhere around that age, when it was like Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, and that just blew the door open for me. I was like, music like this exists, and that led into like 3 Days Grace and like Alien Ant Farm and Incubus and Hoobastank and you know, those alt rock bands, kind of grungy bands. Trapped, unfortunately, yeah. The one song everyone knows. I can't sing it because they'll probably copyright us, because the lead singer is an absolute douchebag. If you don't believe me, go check out his Twitter. And then high school, being in marching band, hanging out with like you, and then honors program and all that stuff. Eventually, music that was being made at that time, pop punk scene, right? Yellow Card, Simple Plan, Green Day, Blink-182, My Chemical Romance, Newfound Glory, just all that stuff, and then eventually, somewhere along the lines in high school as well, someone was like, yeah, that music's cool, but check this shit out, bro. And then they gave me a Metallica CD. They gave me Master of Puppets. And that shit blew my mind too. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I never heard music like that before in my life.
Did you ever listen to Dragon Force?
Oh, yeah, dude.
Oh,
yeah. I have a Dragon Force story that's so appropriate for the podcast. Real quick tangent. This is a crazy story. So my senior year of high school, I was a volunteer for Roadrunner Records for their advertisement. They used to call it their what did they used to call it? It was like their street market or their street team or whatever, right? And essentially it was like a bunch of fans would sign up voluntarily to Roadrunner Records. They would send us a shitload of like advertisement stuff and just shit to advertise concerts around our area. And the first show I ever advertised for them was, I think it was Dragon Force's co-headlining, and if I remember correctly, the show was Horse the Band, Dragon Force, and All That Remains was the show. If I remember that correctly,
I know 2 of the 3.
Yeah, and I got backstage tickets. It wasn't in Pomona. It was either in that show wasn't in Santa Monica. It was one of the I think. Was it in Santa Ana? It was somewhere around there. It was like in one of the Santa towns, And I went to the show. I took my friend at the time. Had a great time. Killer show. All the bands played marvelously. I was backstage because I had backstage passes, and all the bands were looking at me like, "Who the fuck are you?" And I'm like, I'm with," and I'm like 17, 18, like it's senior year, and it's like, and there's like, oh, "Okay, you want a beer?" And I was just like, me and my friend just looking at each other like, no, thank you. Because we were like freaking out. And they're like, all right, man, cool. And one of the guitarists from Dragon Force, his name's Sam, he was pissed drunk. Like he was just like barely walking back out. Like, oh, and he has a thick British accent. He's like, this sounding like Ozzy Osbourne, but slightly more coherent. And he's just like, oh, you're the Roadrunner guy. Oh, let's take a picture. And he takes a picture of me real quick. And then he literally just like looks at me and he goes, and he just like flicks my nipple. He literally just goes, he starts laughing hysterically and then he leaves. And that's my Dragon Force story. True fucking story, dude. I was just like, we gotta go to more shows, bro. It was bananas, that show.
Oh,
but yeah, Dragon Force was something I listened to in high school, and like
only from that point on, though.
Yeah, only from that point on. And then like, yeah, man, like metal, like Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Slayer, and then like the solo guitarists like Santana, Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, and then that's when I started learning guitar around that time, senior year, and then the whole Roadrunner thing happened my senior year. So then I really got into modern metal. So it was like Killswitch Engage, Trivium, Dragon Force, which or All That Remains, I think, was signed to them at the time.
Avenged Sevenfold. Do you count them?
I was they're definitely metal. I was not that into them though, surprisingly, during that age. There was like 2 songs everyone loved, which was like Unholy Confessions and Backcountry, which was the big song, right? Because it made MTV and all that shit.
Yeah.
But no, mostly what I really liked in high school was like the 80s, early 90s metal, Metallica, Iron Maiden, Megadeth, stuff like that. But like that was like junior, senior year when I really got into it. What about your history?
I don't remember you wearing any denim jackets with patches on them, though.
No, I was never like I had shirts. Like I don't know if you remember the shirts. I had a lot of band shirts, but that was like the extent of it. And that's mostly because of my mom. Again, huge Catholic. So you can imagine all kinds of trouble I would get. Like, what's this CD? What are you listening to? You know what I mean? Because metal album covers are fucking brutal, man. Like it would freak any parent out. So I was never really allowed to get like a denim jacket and put patches on it, or hang up posters in my room and shit like that. Like my mom was really freaking out about me listening to metal, like really freaking out. She was convinced the devil had me for like, I think eventually, like I eventually got her, me and her legitimately. And again, it's because, you know, parents, my mom literally comes from like a small town of like inhabitant of like 1,000 people at the most, like literally the most rural part of Mexico you can think of. She grew up there, right? So eventually, like, obviously me telling her like I like this music, and eventually I had to be the one to kind of like explain it to her, you know what I mean? And kind of like open up that conversation so where she didn't just think it was just like this devil's music as Hispanics tend to think it is, you know what I mean? Like really show her the lyrics, really show her like, and obviously what really helped between me and my mom was I studied music. I got a bachelor's degree in music. So I can literally explain to her like the notes and where it comes from, and then compare it to other genres of music she likes.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like for example, like what I would do a lot of the time was like show my mom like a guitar solo or a guitar piece from like a metal piece, and then play it like back to like a classical piece, and she can kind of hear how similar it was. It's just obviously guitar sounds way more gnarly with like the distortion and like the screaming vocals behind it. And eventually we got to an understanding. She's like, okay, I get it. I don't like it. I don't like your music, but I get it and I respect you. Mm-hmm. You can listen to it and stuff like that. But that took a while.
That is the theme of today's show, I think. I understand it. I get it, but I don't like it.
Yeah. It's so weird because that's like, that was my mom with not my music. And now you and I are kind of like, we're kind of in that age where we're in the same boat and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But it's so weird. But before we get into all of that, right, let me throw back the question at you, right? Like I gave you literally my history of it from like first thoughts that I can remember to like through high school at the very least, right? Let's not really get into too much post high school. But what was your history with music?
It's not too dissimilar. You know, my parents they're from Peru, right? So hugely Catholic community. Lots of Spanish. So growing up here in the United States, it's a lot of K-Love, right?
Yeah.
Here in Los Angeles, at least, I don't know how far they reach out, but K-Love is basically Spanish love songs, ballads, right, all day long, right? Like Cristian Castro, you can have maybe some Juanes in there, right? Who else was big?
At that time, Los Bukis were like the famous one, man. That group was really big. Juan Gabriel, like you pointed out.
Sin Bandera was also pretty big.
Marcos Anthony for, I think, was he starting to become big?
Marcos Antonio Solis?
Yeah, or Mark Anthony. Mark Anthony, sorry. I said Marcus. Yeah.
Mark Anthony was pretty big at that time. Yeah, I think.
Or he's like was starting to get big around that time. Something like that.
Right. It was late 90s maybe.
Yeah. Vicente Fernandez was like a huge thing too.
Oh, yeah.
That's like like Mexican baladas and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's mostly what my mom would listen to on the radio, right? It was K-Love, all Spanish ballads. My dad also, quite like your dad, was like a little bit more worldly. So he actually listened to a lot of disco, a lot of the 70s rock, right? So like
Credence.
Maybe, I don't know. I just remember he had a mix CD that someone had made for him so he could play in the car, and it was stuff like
The Doors, The Who,
The Who. What is a little more
Led Zeppelin,
a little more like disco-ish. So ABBA was big. He loved ABBA.
If we're thinking disco, that would be like KC and the Sunshine Band, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
There's like a specific song I'm thinking of that I can't. Was it Blinded Me with Science?
Is that Electric
Dolby
Company?
By Thomas Dolby. Yeah,
Thomas Dolby, and then like Stevie Wonder and no, but we're thinking disco. Like the big disco guys were like KC and like Earth, Wind, Fire, Electric Company.
Earth, Wind, Fire, Aerosmith he liked.
Aerosmith was coming up to prominence during that era. Surprisingly, Kiss released a disco album, but this was like rock and roll.
Yeah, the Jay Giles band also with Centerfold. I remember hearing that a lot. Yeah, Earth, Wind, Fire, Journey. Journey was big.
Journey. There you go. Yeah, Journey. Yeah.
That's kind of stuff my dad liked. Yeah. And then even a lot of Disney stuff for sure. I remember hearing the Little Mermaid soundtrack on repeat on cassette tape over and over again. I think we talked about that during the Disney.
Yeah, cassette tape. Just wear that ribbon out, dude.
Yeah. And then came the 2000s, right? I think one of the first CDs that I bought myself with my own money was Newfound Glory. So that's why it's just been a huge impact on me. And like Sum 41, Blink 182, a lot of stuff like that. And then I had an uncle who loved Queen, right? He listened to Queen all the time. So bands like Queen, Journey, all that stuff growing up, and then, like I said, all the bands you talked about, really. Like, I remember Three's Grace was big, especially on MTV, because MTV used to play music.
Yeah, can you believe that? Stand for music television, not media television. Who would have thunk?
Yeah.
Back in my day, they actually played music, man. Yeah. We are at that age.
We are, yeah.
We should change the title of this episode to "Figuring Out We're Old."
Bowling for Soup was big on me too. I loved Bowling for Soup.
Ooh, Fountains of Wayne.
Fountains of Wayne. Stacy's mom.
Stacy's mom, bro. Still a banger.
Yeah, I think it wasn't until college when I started listening to other stuff, like other genres, like a little bit more like acoustic guitar, like Jack Johnson, things like that. You can go back to the oldies, so like a lot of Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Billie Holiday. All that stuff came like later on in college when you go out and you experience more of the world, you learn about more things, you become a kind of slightly different person.
Yeah, there's something to be said, because it's like, it's weird, right? Because we think of our parents' music as like, for lack of a better adjective, we think of it as soft, right? Like you listen to like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and like Creedence, you're like, oh, that's cute, right? Compared to like what we were listening to, like Yellow Card and My Chemical Romance. But at the time that music was coming out, that music was rebellious. Like that music was freaking people out, was freaking the adults of America out.
Yeah, it's famously Selena was controversial, right? Because of
it's so funny because it's like, because we view our parents' music as like old, like it's not, it's like soft, it's like, oh, it's what my dad listens to, right? And then we get our music, right, and it's rebellious. Like that's why we I think we gravitate towards it, right? There's something about the lyrical content, like the angsty lyrical content, like the aggressive rhythmic aspects, the guitars and stuff like that. Distortion just got heavier compared to like, distortion back in the day. And of course our parents are freaking out about our music, but if you really look at it, and I firmly believe this, it's just a natural evolution of like what they were listening to. It's literally like, it's the same emotional context behind it, the same kind of notes too. It's just a little bit faster. There's more notes in between the notes, and it's just louder. Like everything's just so heavily distorted, right? But it's just so funny how, looking back at it now, it's just like, yeah, like your parents were freaking out about you listening to the Beatles, and now you're freaking out about me listening to Only One by Yellow Card, which is a breakup song. It's just funny. And it's something to be said too about how like, and it was our dads too, right? Because our moms are like the ballads and our dads are like the rock and roll, right? And of course we naturally kind of followed that same pathway where we wanted rock music. We wanted heavy rock and roll music, right? It was our sound, right? It's the sound of our generation, as cliche as that might sound. It is literally the sound of our generation. So it's like, I think that's why like our dads, I don't know if your dad ever freaked out about you listening to it.
Not really. No.
My dad didn't either. Most of the time, if it was anybody freaking out, it was my mom.
Yeah, same.
And if my dad had to talk to me about the music, it was mostly like, look, man, just, you know how your mom gets, just
put your headphones on, keep it low.
Exactly, right? like you love your mother, right? She raised you, she cooks for you. Like just do it for her.
Yeah.
Not so much. I personally don't care, but your mom. There's something to be said about that. I think that I don't know. I just find interesting how it's the same. It's different, but it's the same too in a certain from a certain point of view. Man.
Yeah, so that said, how is today's music the same but different?
How is what today's music the same but
today's
different? Today's music is weird, right? We're just jumping into it now. Okay.
I think we should. I think
so. It's funny because like it's really different, but it's uniquely their sound. It's a lot of it is electronic based, right? It's electronic sounds like
a synthesizer.
Comparing to what MIDI sounded like in the 70s and 80s compared to what it sounds like now, there's certain moments where unless you just have a finely tuned ear, you can't even tell if a certain instrument is legitimately computerized or not. Like the sounds nowadays are so realistic and so well produced, and producers now, the well-taught producers, I should say, right? Producers nowadays can mimic sounds so impeccably that you sometimes you literally can't tell if it's like a real instrument or not. So the advent of technology really changed the course of what music sounds like, obviously. And so it's very uniquely of its time, of the generation. It's very technologically based, right? And we all know like these last couple of generations like grew up with like the boom of technology, right? The internet arose, computers became faster. Eventually we were able to fit a computer into our own little pockets, right? With cell phones and what have you. And it's just like, you remember like the cell phones we grew up with, these big fucking things that did two things, call and text. And maybe you could play a game of Snake on it. That's it.
It was so fun.
and now I could literally everything I do with my laptop, I could literally do with this guy, like legitimately. And it's fucking insane thinking about that, where we were when kids today, when we were as their age back in the day. I don't know. I'm just fucking whatever, right? But
yeah, even if you look at just video games, right? Like growing up, Nintendo, like Super Nintendo, even the NES, like came right at like when we were born. So having the kind of graphics you see on a Nintendo Entertainment System compared to what you see now with like the PS4 and the Xbox and things like that, like it's crazy.
It's crazy.
I don't know if you've seen commercials for the PS5, but they show some gameplay.
Dude, yes,
insane. Like that was literally Ronald Reagan on my screen.
Dude, the Sony did like a demo of like the technology pushing the PS5. It was just like this simple like scene of like this girl in this cavern, and it's just like rocks, right? And I looked at it and I was like, that's not made in a computer. That's real. That's shot on location. Like it looked. Obviously, the character itself, you can tell it's like, oh, that's the character. But like everything else around her was legit real. I was like, how the fuck do you make that on a computer, man? And then you go back to like N64 and like Mario 64 and everything's like all sharp. There's no curves anywhere because we don't have the technology. Everything is made out of rocks. It's so bananas. So listening to music today, right? The main pop genre and stuff, I can appreciate that. It's definitely a sound of their own, which is what every generation does. And I could also appreciate how it deviated, because it's not rock music anymore. It's something else completely different. You know what I mean? We call it pop just to generalize it, but I think that kind of does a disservice. I know some people are like, it's just music, man. But I believe in like not labeling it per se, but giving it its personality, giving it its characteristic, right? Like when we say rock, you're like, okay, but what kind of rock? You talking about pop punk, straight punk, hardcore, metal, alternative, blah blah blah. It's like that's fine. Because we're human beings too. We like to naturally just explain things. So I think calling it pop right now is like just the thing. I think maybe in like a few years from now, we might find a different term for it altogether. But it's completely of its time. It's completely of this generation. So for that reason, I appreciate it for that. Now, do I like it?
That is the question today.
I gotta admit, some of it I really do. Some of it I really don't. Some of it is really boring to me personally. Some of it, listening to that, and I'll let you get into it too but I just want to quickly say it right now. Listening to some of the songs on that Spotify, I literally thought I literally had a moment. I'm not being facetious. I literally had a moment. I had to go back and make sure I didn't have it on repeat because some of the shit just sounds way too similar to me. Like it's, and I was just like, is this the same song? And I was like, nope, it's the third song down. Oh, well, okay, you know. But throwing the question back at you, what do you think?
So I think that's not unsimilar from what our parents probably thought. Where like you put in a Blink 182 song and you play a New Found Glory song, and to them maybe that does sound the same.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think today, if you think of it in that context, like those three songs to us could sound the same because we're not accustomed to listening to it. But for people who are, right, three are completely different songs. That being said, I also found myself like zoning out maybe 5 songs in and like not really listening anymore.
Yeah, same, dude. What do you think of the sounds of some of them?
Oh, very electronic. It's like it's electronic, but not electronic in the way that like in the 70s and 80s where things were like so-called electronic.
Yeah.
Right? The synthesizer and it just doesn't it doesn't sound real, right? I think
yeah.
And I think that's one of my main issues with like those big music festivals like EDC and things like that, where people go and see these DJs to like play their music. Like I've been to a couple, and it's not for me because the way I see it is you know the guy stands there and he pushes play on a laptop, and like everyone dances to it. And if you want to go for a dance, that's great, right? But for me, like I like to go to a concert and see people like play live and like be in that energy and just like it feels like you're in a moment, right? And then the music today, like I said, it's like it feels like you push play on a laptop, and that's why I kind of zoned out during the playlist because like it doesn't feel like I'm in a moment. It just all feels kind of constructed. It's like social media in a way where like you kind of just go through the motions and zone out.
Yeah, I honestly, yeah. There's certain moments too where I was listening to it. It's like, and me having the musician's ear, I guess. Right, the musician's ear. Like I can pick out some intricacies and the subtle differences between the songs. Obviously, if I'm really studying and paying close attention to it, but if I'm just listening or if I have it in the background, they all kind of blend together into like this mesh of like it's a 15-minute long song, and when in reality it's been 5 different songs for 3 minutes on average. I appreciate in some aspects the nature of the music. A lot of it's very much about the vocals. Like everything behind it is literally just atmosphere to just highlight what the vocals are doing. And I'm literally pointing out one of the ones I didn't like all of her songs, but I liked some of them were Ariana Grande's, because a lot of the stuff in the background of her is just chords and color. It's like a lot of rubato, a lot of like shimmery, glistening kind of notes, right? But it's very much her. Like she is the focal point of her songs, which is very reminiscent to me of like you were mentioning, like Frank Sinatra and stuff like that, of what the orchestra with him would try to do, right? Like the orchestra had its moments for sure, but it never fought with Frank's voice. Frank was the forefront of all the pieces he sang in front of. And it's very much that, maybe a little more simplified than I would like it to be, but it's the nature of that to me is very similar. Different, but similar. That being said, sometimes her songs too kind of all blend together because it's like it's so well polished and all this frequencies and you can hear everything. It gets to a point where it's just like it's too well polished. You know what I mean? It's not very lifelike sometimes. And she has a dynamic voice. I honestly think she has a really great voice. But it's just sometimes that mass overproduction kind of like dilutes the fact that she could probably go further with it, but the constraints of that genre don't let her, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, I think that's why one thing she loves is like musical theater, because that really lets her kind of like showcase her voice, right?
Mhm.
Especially when she gets to deal with like really like loud ballads. You're like, well, like she can sing.
She has a dynamic voice.
Yeah.
I've heard a couple of like segments of her on like TV shows and stuff like that live. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, you're legit. Like you can actually sing. Like,
Yeah, but you're right. Like a lot of what sells today, right? It doesn't allow her to really utilize her voice to her fullest.
the music's not challenging.
Right.
That's what I like to say. It's not. It's very much like you said. It's very much for the background. You pop it in, you go do other shit while it's playing in the background, but you don't have to actively be listening to it.
Yeah.
Is
I love Ariana Grande. I think she's great. Her personality, right, is wonderful. And she seems very genuine in her interactions with like media and the guests and stuff. But man, this new album that she has, the Positions album, it's like really dirty. If you listen to it,
dude. There was a moment I was listening. I don't know what song it was. It probably was one of hers. It probably wasn't. But there was a moment I was playing video games with friends. I was playing Among Us, and I just hear it. I hear it crystal clear because I know they produce it so you could hear it. It's just like, I just want you to fuck me all night, and I stopped playing. And I'm like, what the. What? Like, it was just so. It was like everything else is like, it blends in. It's just background noise, but then like the music purposefully like does a pause there, so you just hear the vocal. Like, I just want you to fuck me all night. And it's just like, this is where it look. There's not to say there hasn't been dirty songs growing up. Like we all remember the songs that were dirty when we were like booty rocking everywhere. You remember that by Bubba Sparks? Yeah. Booty, booty, booty. The thong song.
Shop? Take me to the candy shop.
Yeah, oh yeah, milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Yeah. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but mammals, so let's do it like they do on the Discovery Channel. Getting horny now, like dirty songs have always existed. That's not the point of it, right? It's just like it's so funny how the music wants you to just vibe to it, and it does shit like that to take you out of it too. So it's like,
well, so I don't think it's done to take you out. I think it's different now, right? Because like the lyrics, like you were mentioning, like they're like dirty songs have always existed, but they've been masked by these metaphors, and so like maybe parents don't necessarily understand what it actually means, and they're just kind of vibing to, oh yeah, like it sounds fun, it's got a good beat, you can dance to it, but they don't know what the actual lyrics mean. Yeah. As opposed to now, everything's a little more explicit, like
just straight up.
Yeah, in the lyrics that when I would actually pay attention to lyrics, like you said, it's not challenging. There's no metaphors. It's just very explicit. Like it's I want you to fuck me all night. Like that's all it is. Nothing deeper to like dig into.
Yeah.
I think that's one aspect I did not like about today's music, is that it doesn't feel quote unquote poetic.
It's crass.
It's just crass, yeah.
I can get
WAP.
that.
WAP to me. It's like, whoa.
That song,
man.
I understand a lot of people like it. And okay, it's a jarring song, man.
Yeah.
Really, when I've heard it before, like, because obviously there was rumblings about it, right? But like really sitting down and listening to it, I'm just like, holy shit, this song is wild. To put it as mildly as I can, this song is wild.
It is bananas. It's off the
It is. It's a certified freak.
I'm
7 days a week.
I listened to a lot of Spice Girls growing up, and I'm all about girl power, all that stuff. But this is going too far, I think, in a sense. But it's way it's beyond. Wow, I don't even have any words to how to explain it, but it's, I think, crossing that line and then just like leaving it way behind.
Oh yes, the line of like of prudency. right?
Yeah.
It's the complete opposite of being a prude. It's just it's out there. And again, like I can appreciate it because that's obviously the goal of the song, right? The goal of the song is to be really out there with it. And in that sense it aces the test. But yeah, for me personally, it's just like I can't listen to it anywhere. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just the easy thing to say is just not for me. Obviously, it's just not for me. Obviously, I'm not the demographic, but like it really isn't. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm too prude, or but it's really it's wild, dude. I think it's a little too wild for me, and that's coming from a guy who listens to like death metal and stuff like that about corpses and stuff. You know what I mean? It's weird. It could also be there's some. I think there's something to be said too, like about American culture in general, how we're just kind of brought up to kind of like I guess in a sense like kind of shun when things are too sexually explicit in every form of media, but violence is perfectly fine, right? Like you can never get too much violence in our media, which is something to be said about American culture in general. Even like Latino cultures, like there's sexy things on it, right? But it's always like shy of getting too explicit. And then
Yeah.
like that other stuff, people are getting shot at all the time. And then when people have sex, it's always like
Like,
it's
oh,
very
look.
it's very much like they're making out and then they're under covers and you're just supposed to put the dots together like you know what they did. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But like people get shot all the time. There's like headshots on TV now and stuff like that. But God forbid we see an areola. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't I don't particularly like the song. I don't
No.
hate the song. I think I think it's when
I
that
think I'll say that.
it's catchy as
100%
fuck,
accurate.
dude. It really is. Like there's some hoes in this house. Like that popped in, it's like oh shit, and then I mean I've memorized some of the lyrics. Listening to Certified Freak 7 days a week, and some of those
Mhm.
lines are so wild. Like they're just so memorable. But yeah, I can't listen to it on a repeat. It's a lot for me. It's a lot for me, and I'll
Mhm.
own up to that. I don't know what that says about me, but it's at the same time too. Like it is kind of awesome and cool that we live in a world where that song can be made and it's popular. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
sometimes, like you remember us growing up, for us to really find like those crazy songs, we had to really dig deep into like Napster and LimeWire, or a friend of a
Oh,
friend had to like show us like you have guys have heard this crazy song. You know what I mean? Like, and now it's just out there and people are like sharing it and it's like super popular. It's got like millions of views on YouTube. It's like it's still on the global like top 10 on Spotify. People are listening to that song a lot. So I mean, yeah.
what?
I
Look
just feel
for
bad because I don't want to say like I hate WAP because it's too, you know what I mean? It's not. It's oh god, it's wild. That's all I can say about it. It's a wild fucking song.
Okay, I want to go through. I want to talk about some of the names that pop up because
Oh yes. How do
some
you
of these
say it?
names are crazy. Um, let's just start. I pull up the USA Top 50 on Spotify. I'm gonna go through some names right here. 24K Golden
Is that Ian?
with Ian Dior,
Okay.
right? Which also I think Dior and like Gucci and like all these like high end like kind of classy like brands.
I like
They
how like the song for the night has Little Baby and then Da Baby.
Lil Baby and the Baby, like Megan the Stallion,
Megan the Stallion, not the Stallion. The Stallion.
because you got to make sure you say it correctly. Lil Durk is also a great name. Pop Smoke. I don't know.
Doja Cat.
Doja Cat. Juice World. R.I.P.
Then we got some regular names like Conan Gray and Tate McRae.
Yeah.
And then
Other Toucan.
Ty Dollar Sign.
High dollar sign. Shawn Mendes.
Yeah,
Still
just
popular.
just regular kind of names, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just it's a different time, man. Like we're old, man. We don't get it, dude. We're antiquated, bro.
I guess so.
We don't. You just don't get it, man. You don't. It's not for you, you old man. All right, I look at number 4, that Kitty with Bad Bunny. Is that Jay Cortez or is that Hey Cortez?
Jai Cort. I have no idea.
Is it Jai Cortez?
So which one are you looking at?
It's the song the Kitty. It's number 4 on United States Top 50.
USA Top 50. I don't have that on here.
You don't have number 4, Dakiti?
Number 4 is For the Night.
Oh, that's number 6 for me.
That's interesting.
Maybe it's also like the state we live in, maybe?
Oh, possibly.
Because that was the one thing I did want to point out. I found it very interesting that a Spanish song came on Top 50. I was like, that's pretty cool. I like that like some Spanish like artists are making into United States Top 50. I thought that was really, really cool.
Bad Bunny, and I have no idea. Hi Cortez.
Would it be that? I have to think of it in Spanish. A Cortez. Hi Cortez.
Hello, my name is Hi Cortez.
Yeah, maybe, right? Maybe. Dude. And then, this is probably because I am in Texas, I had one country song by Luke Combs, Forever.
I had that too. Actually, I really like that one, actually.
I actually really liked it too. I was like, this is really nice. You know why? Because just like everything below and top of it is just like do, and then all here, and then you just hear that steel guitar. It's like instruments.
Yes.
People learning their craft. Oh,
did you get a BTS song on your top 50?
I did. I gotta admit, I didn't hate it either. I thought it was pretty cool. Let me see. It was where are you at, BTS? Where are you at? The Dynamite song?
Yeah, Dynamite.
The songs I found myself really liking a lot, legitimately liking, were songs with singers in it, right? And either some kind of like instrumentation, like some kind of instrument actually being played, or at least giving the illusion as being played. So like obviously like Luke Combs song I really liked. I really, really liked Harry Styles' Watermelon Sugar.
I actually kind of liked Justin Bieber's Holy also.
Justin Bieber's Holy was actually kind of good too. And I personally really like Blinding Lights by The Weeknd. I think that song's
that's a good one too, actually.
Super catchy.
Yeah, I kind of vibe to that one.
And then we got a little bit down the way, we had like Fleetwood Mac and Kane Brown.
I didn't get any of those on my list.
But yeah, surprisingly too, what I really found so surprising, I guess just because her album came out, how dominant Ariana Grande is on this list.
Yeah,
she is sprinkled everywhere throughout. So I think that's kind of cool too, that like a singer can still do that. You know what I mean? Like there's actual melody in the song. So a lot of like, and I've never been big on rap ever. You know what I mean? Like it just was a genre like I was never really exposed to, and then once I was, it just wasn't for me at that time. So a lot of like the rap heavy tunes in this list, they all literally bleed together for me. I can't tell you who is who and which is which. Like they all literally sounded the same to me. And I think like in between 1 and 20 is where it was like a lot of that stuff was like jumbled together, except for WAP. That one clearly stands out. Just because it's so it's just a song that stands out, man. Like it's the only way to explain it. Like it's very purposeful, and like you're gonna hear what we're saying.
Yeah.
So but like 21 Savage, Drake, who I've never really liked, I'm sorry. The Baby Clan, Little Baby and Da Baby, like all that stuff just kind of like.
Did you just call them the Baby Clan?
Yeah, the Baby Clan. all those guys just kind of bled together for me, and I couldn't really tell you what song was whose. Like, so all in all, we kind of buried the lead. It wasn't a terrible time, but
it also wasn't a fun time.
It wasn't also particularly a great time either. Yeah. It's so funny that we both were like, "Oh, the country song was really good."
That felt like the most genuine like lyrics to me.
Yes, it's such a nice song.
So nice and wholesome.
It's so wholesome. Why can't you listen to music like that, honey? Why you gotta go listen to but legit, low key, and this is obviously Texas affecting me, but I've been more and more into country these last several years too. Not all of it's great either. A lot of country sometimes too, in my opinion, can bleed together because like a lot of it's very chord heavy bass. It's the same 4 chords on acoustic guitar, and it's like, oh god. But when it hits, man, it hits. Like it's so good. Like, yeah, I like the stuff I listen to for any country fans out there. Obviously, I like some Chris Stapleton stuff. I like Miranda Lambert a lot. There's surprisingly some Sugarland that I like. Some the irony of that, right? Because Cadillac. What's her name again? Cadillac 3000 or something like that. Here, I could tell you what I can tell you. I have a little playlist because I keep forgetting stuff. But like, yeah, Sugarland, Miranda Lambert, some K Brown. Old Dominion. I really like Old Dominion a lot. Cadillac 3 is what I meant to say. Sorry, everybody. Dan Plachey, pretty good stuff. Little Big Town, Maren Morris. I really love Maren Morris, dude. I think she's fantastic. So yeah, and that's just because of like obviously being in Texas. I've gotten a couple of country gigs, so I've kind of had to like do some deep dives into country to kind of learn how to play it. Like a big method, at least for me, right? The big way I learn how to play something is by actively listening to said something to kind of get the ideas behind it. And I don't know, just listening to some of that stuff, I was like, I appreciate it for what some of it is, man. Some of it could be really good. Like any genre has those moments, right? It eventually gets so oversaturated that some of it starts to bleed together. Like for me nowadays, a lot of metal music tends to sound a lot the same, to the point where it's like there's nothing unique about a lot of the bands that I've heard recently. Every once in a while you find a band that you attach to, but a lot of times too, a lot of like for example, like I mentioned death metal and like deathcore, a lot of it sometimes too is kind of like the same thing, and it just becomes kind of like homogenized. And that's I think that's also the problem sometimes too with labeling too much, because then you start labeling it and putting it into this little fine box of like, you can only do 2 things and that's it. You come out of here and then we don't like you and stuff like that. So there's pros and cons to all that stuff too.
That's why I really appreciate the Arctic Monkeys. Arctic Monkeys. Yeah.
Arctic Monkeys, yeah.
Yeah, because they liked, or I don't know, maybe it's Alex Turner, but they really do like kind of play around with their sound.
Portugal the Man's
also good.
Metric, because
Radiohead
is a good one too. Yeah, those type of bands that like you have to paint them with that broad stroke. Like it's rock. That's just because you can't specifically label what kind of rock.
Right. If you go album by album, maybe you can start like kind of getting more specific in what kind of genre it is. But overall,
as a band, you can't label them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So what have we learned?
That there are some good musics and some bad musics.
Yes, there's many good musics and many bad musics, and then there's WAP.
That stands out on its own.
It's its own thing. It's neither good nor bad. It's just WAP. Yes. And you take it or leave it as is, baby.
So any recommendations from the top 50 list other than Luke Combs?
Damn it. I was going to say Luke Combs. Here, let me go back to it real quick. Honestly, some of Ariana Grande's songs I thought were really good.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, I actually like Marshmello in terms of like electronic music. So I would recommend the song he made with Juice WRLD, Come and Go. I actually really like that a lot. Obviously, I mentioned The Weeknd, Blinding Lights is still there, number 20. I really like that song a lot. Other than that, can't really recommend much of anything else. Because I mean, but I feel like, it's like we said, and I feel like that's the purpose of the music too. It's like we put it on, it's in the background, and then we just kind of leave it there. You don't really think about it. I think that's kind of the point of the music, right? Because like we were saying, how this like music and technology is very much of its time. I feel like this music is very much of its time, where it's like where everyone's doing everything all at once. Like you're doing your homework, you're checking your email, you're on YouTube, you're on social media, and you have music playing all at once, right? And this music, I feel like the way it's made, it's meant to sit in the background of all of that. It's just it's the soundtrack to your life. And unless you're really like paying attention to it sometimes, like when you're in the car or something, for the most part, it's like lo-fi beats, man. Like it's just kind of meant to be there, but not be in the forefront. I feel like with a lot of this stuff, that's the impression I got with some of it. So yeah. What about you?
I got two songs that I really liked.
Besides
Flute Combs, yeah.
Who everyone should go check out.
And they're actually both, I think, cover songs. Pop Smoke has a song, What You Know About Love.
Okay.
That I liked. And then Rip Momney has a song, Put Your Records On. Which is his Corinne Bailey Rae song originally, I think.
Oh yeah, I also mentioned Harry Styles' Watermelon Sugar. It's a decent song. Go check that out. It's decent. It's not particularly, there's nothing really fascinating about it, honestly, but it's a good little ditty. It's a nice little ooh, watermelon sugar. And then it's done.
All right, I think that will do it for today.
I think that's where we ended, right? I'm a certified freak. 7 days a week. That's the only line I remember from that. There's other lines I remember too, but they're out of context.
You cannot say them.
Yeah, I said rated R, not NC-17.
All right.
Which that song definitely, if that song was a movie, it would be NC-17.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what it does well. I will give it that. What it does,
it accomplishes its goal.
It does it very well. Yeah, it aces that test. Granted, it's the only one taking that test, but it aced it for sure. Brian, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kuno_stars. Where can they find you, David?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at DavidBMusic21. And you can also find this podcast both on Twitter and at Instagram at Speak Freely Pod. You could also, because I got a lot of stuff to plug, you could also find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/DavidBMusic21, where I either play music, make music, or play video games with music in it. Also, I haven't done this before, but I'm going to do it today. I have another podcast. Yes, Brian, I'm cheating on you. The Godzilla podcast with my good friend Mike, where we're slowly going through every single Godzilla film ever made ever. We've done 16 episodes so far. We've only aired like 8 though. We're really behind. We have a huge catalog. But they've been really fun. We've had guests like Adam Witt was recently on. We've had Frankie Janish. We've had Whitney Seibold, Drew McWeeny. And it's just us watching a movie about Godzilla and going like, this is what we like about it. This is what we don't like about it. All right, see you next week. So it's really fun. Honestly, dude, it's really fun going a deep dive into that, because the only Godzilla films I've ever really watched were like the American ones. So doing a deep dive into like the original Japanese versions has been really, really fun. And it's something I think everyone would enjoy or can find things to enjoy in.
And there are like 75 of them or something, aren't there?
There's like 36.
Well, if you round up, 75.
Yeah, you were like a third of the way there.
Yeah,
two-thirds, like halfway, a little less than half.
Still, 36 is quite a lot.
It's a lot of movies. Yeah, I think
almost as much as the Fast franchise.
Yeah, the Fast franchise has 8.
37.
Surprisingly, James Bond has 24. The new one would be 25, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Which I think is the second longest movie franchise. The first one, I'm pretty sure is Godzilla with 36. Anyways, this has been an episode of Speak Freely. If you haven't, if you're watching on YouTube, please click that subscribe button to follow us. Also, click that thumbs up button if you liked it, or thumbs down. Oh, I have it backwards. Whatever. Leave some comments in the comment section. Tell us how wrong we are and how old we are for not liking today's music. That's been an episode, guys. We'll see you next week. And ceviche, which are not traditional Thanksgiving for you guys, but for us, very traditional. Very traditional.
Also, your ceviche is probably different than my ceviche.
It's totally different. It's radically different. Yours is just fish and a shitload of lime juice and maybe some onion.